Doom spending equals doomed life. That is the topic for today's video. Now, what is doom spending? You may wonder. Basically, it means that you are spending money that you don't have. Usually it's unnecessary things, or even for necessities. You could be just taking things overkill. You know, you're spending like there's no tomorrow, and that's basically the gist of it. So it's this, you have this addiction to where you just can't stop spending money on something. That is something, that is a thing that is actually a really big problem, really everywhere you look, because there's so many little things that can influence you into buying something. So, there can be things that can make you feel pressured, especially when there's, things that can be all trendy and whatnot. So, it's not, I wouldn't say that it's not even entirely the person's fault. Like they're putting themselves through unnecessary stuff, which, in turn, they're setting themselves up for failure by putting themselves through massive debt. But, marketing, the influencers out there, all of this really comes together. Now, how do you combat it? Well, you can really go through different methods to prevent it or stop it from getting worse if you have a large habit, like if you're a shopaholic of some sorts. You could cut off your time from social media. Spend more time with the right kind of people, that aren't going to judge you based off of, like, oh, you don't have this or that, things like that. Of course, also, the biggest thing of all is, just don't put yourself into buy now, pay later situations. Now, when it comes to that, and same with, payday, installment loans, I'm not saying don't do that, but you got to do it in a way where it makes sense, like last resort emergency measures. So, like, let's say that, you wound up being in a position where, like you absolutely needed a car, and you have like no other choice but to make monthly payments on something. If you decide to go that route, okay, kudos to you, as long as you can reasonably afford doing that. Because if you wind up going overkill on that, something happens, the next thing you know, you lost your car, and who knows, maybe even your job in turn if you didn't lose it already, depending on what situation had popped up. So, and also in addition, something that nobody really talks about is that there are some scummy dealerships out there where, they want to say, oh, well, this is under warranty, whenever they, or they say, oh, no, this isn't under the warranty, whenever technically it is. If something breaks down, now all of a sudden you are having to get a car. Now all of a sudden you're making monthly payments on a car where, a lot of times people aren't able to reasonably afford in the first place. And on top of that, you got to get your own repairs done, paying out of pocket. So, stuff like that does happen. You put yourself in a big bind. So, just because oh, well, it's a newer car, it's not supposed to break down. Well, guess what? That doesn't mean it's guaranteed to not break down in the first place. Failures can still happen. Doesn't matter whether it's, a few years old or 25 years old. So that's a big problem as part of, that's a symptom of a bigger problem, of course, with doom spending, where people think, oh yeah, I got like this really nice car or whatever, like, oh, I deserve it. It's like, listen, like, I'm not saying don't treat yourself, but again, check your budget, check all the little things, make sure, okay, hey, if it's something like that, can I reasonably afford it? Now, I would say when it comes to stuff like that with a car, just like anything else, get everything you can, as much as possible, pay it up front, get it outright. Knock it out of the way, you got your payment, and then you own whatever item that it is. Whether it's a car, like, hey, like, you're in that kind of situation where even if it does take a while for you to get something good, well, sorry about that, where it takes a while to get something good, like, sometimes you just got to stick with it. Not everything's about this. It's got to be about this instant gratification all the time. It doesn't work that way to where you're going to be set for success. You're setting yourself up for failure. That's what you're doing. Like, I mean, if you wind up just all of a sudden, you're going buy now, pay later on, let's say beauty products, for example. Okay, like, you went into a store and you bought like $100, for example, right? So instead of paying that $100 right there full, in the store, like, bam, whatever you bought's yours. Now, all of a sudden, you put yourself in a position where you got to make monthly payments on that stuff, and if you can't keep up or you ignore it, then all of a sudden you're in a big problem. And, credit starts dropping, and then of course, you keep doing that stuff over and over again, and, you got like $10 a month here, and then like another like 15, 20, like $50 a month somewhere else. That stuff piles up. That piles up. And I also do not believe in doing, sure as hell don't believe in doing buy now, pay laters on vacations. Like, if you can't go somewhere, don't go to that place. You can go to somewhere else. Or just wait a little while. Like, come on. Like, And I understand, the mental aspects of that, taking vacations and everything, and how huge that can be. Like, I mean, for somebody like me that, has had like my share of struggles and whatnot, I still know at the end of the day that, hey, as long as, I'm sticking to a certain routine and whatnot, no matter what I have going on around me, I know I'll get rewarded. And I remember 2 years ago, my last vacation I took was to Minneapolis. Now, I live in Indianapolis, which that's a 9-hour drive. My last car that I had, I had to apply with so many payday and installment loans. It was crazy. I mean, I had to do so much just to keep that car upright, which surprisingly I had gotten it fixed actually just enough to where I could go anywhere with it. So, you know what? I took that trip, and you know what? 2 months, and then I actually met my very first friend from my YouTube channel that I started 14 years ago. Met her in person for the first time, which at that point I had known her for was for 11 and a half years, because this was April 2022. Well, really, like, it was like March 31st, but like when I got there. Well, anyway, you know what? I had no regrets, and I did this. I'll tell you what. I took this vacation when I did not have a whole lot of money to spare. But you know what? I understood the aspects of you only live once and things like that. I really do. But there's a time and place for that. And I, you know, I paid for my hotel with, you know, completely upfronts. So, you know, I still made sure I had, you know, plenty of money with gas, you know, a little bit with food, and getting, you know, like, and I made sure also when I went to the Mall of America that I even got a couple of souvenirs. You know, so I didn't really have a whole lot of money to work with. But I still did anyway, all without doing buy now, pay later, or loans for that specific reason. Now, I'll tell you what, when it did come, oh, sorry. When it did come to stuff with loans, you know, I mean, I had up to, I believe it was 5 or 6 loans when it came to the car repairs, because the thing was that I wound up getting screwed over by the car a lot. They didn't tell me about stuff wrong with it. It turned out there was a lot of problems, and because of me just moving to my current place at the time 4 years ago, combined with the job that I had at Beech Grove Walmart on the southeast side of Indy, here I'm like on the west side. It's like, you know, this was you know, what turned into was basically about, well, like a 5-minute drive. You know, it wound up being 20 minutes. So at that time, you know, I had to get myself a better car on gas, because then things turned into me fueling up once a week. So, you know, I thought like, okay, I got a really good upgrade and whatnot. But then, you know, also a car lot, they tried saying stuff like, oh, well, you know, they tried saying stuff on their site, you know, oh, we inspect our cars. Well, nah, they were full of BS. But even with all the cars I've owned, even with all the stuff I dealt with, you know what? I still purchased every single car outright. I've never had to worry about making monthly payments on a car. Now, when it comes to phones, there's the last 2 phones that I purchased, including this one, the iPhone 15, and my other one was the 8 Plus. I paid that up front. So, you know, I know, like, okay, hey, that stuff's been completely mine. Now, I've been lucky that the other 6 phones that I owned beforehand, there were 3 basic phones from Verizon, and then my first 3 phones were straight talk, which have been iPhones. Like, all of my smartphones have been iPhones, but at least I can say, like, no matter what, like, even though, yeah, got help from family with those being given to me, like, hey, I mean, at least, you know, they were still mine. So, but even when I got to purchasing my last 2 phones, again, full price. You know, made sure to even, you know, get good cases and whatnot. I'm all taken care of, good to go there. Now, I'll tell you what, I mean, if I had the opportunity to, you know, even buy a home completely outright, I freaking would. If I did have that kind of money to where, you know, okay, hey, I get like a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house, you know, and I saw something like, okay, hey, it's like, say, 250,000 or whatever, then, and I know, like, okay, hey, I got this money and plenty left over, then hell yeah, I'm gonna go for it. Why is that? Because I'm not going to strap myself down with any kind of payments, whether it's mortgage or even like that, or even rent to own. Which in that kind of situation, I would do rent to own. I'm not going to just straight rent a house. Like I want to at least have intentions on owning it. Just like currently where I'm at in a 1-bedroom mobile home. Rent to own. So, you know, even in that kind of situation too, you know, at least you got to put yourself in those positions for success. So, you know, at some point, you know, hey, like once it does become me owning the trailer, then $145 comes off. So, you know, hey, that still gives me something to look forward to. That's something you gotta do too. Give yourself something like that can motivate yourself. Really, self-motivation. You know, I mean, and I understand there's certain aspects where, you know, like, yeah, you only live once, tomorrow's never promised, but you don't screw up your future based off of just a temporary feeling. And you can't just use that as an excuse all the time. Like, you know, you gotta do your stuff, you gotta pay your bills and everything. Like, have your responsibilities and everything all situated. Save up your money, you know? And like, hey, like, is it cool to like go out to restaurants and whatever? Sure, you know. But like when you're doing that kind of stuff, you're going out and whatnot, you know, you make sure you can reasonably afford this stuff. You know, don't even if you're not doing buy now, pay later stuff on every little thing. Even if you're not, you know, applying loans left and right to get stuff you don't need. Even if like you're well off with money where, let's say you're making like $200,000 a year and you're in a state to where cost of living is, you know, very good, right? And I'll use the state I live in, Indiana, as an example, right? You make $200,000 a year here. I mean, you're doing really well. But, you know, I hear stories, you know, where somehow there's people struggling. And it's not even like, you know, oh, they're in states where, you know, where that can be more difficult, like California, New York, or Hawaii. Like, you know, we're not even talking about states like that. We're talking about even states people are from where it's just like, come on, like, there's no excuses here. I mean, and even in those other states, too, it's like, just gotta, you know, just budget your stuff better. So, I don't know. It's a mess out there. And, you know, I do not go on TikTok. I've never made an account, never will, but even just watching all the other YouTube videos on there, you know, it just made me think, you know what, I want to address this subject too and express my thoughts on it. And it's just like, again, you know, you're doom spending, you're setting yourself up for failure. I mean, plain and simple. And something I've found out is that you are actually, when it comes to student loan debt, that stuff stays around even when you file for bankruptcy. So even if you do all that, you know, try to wipe the slate clean, well, you got to make sure you take care of that too. So even if all the other stuff gets, you know, wiped out. So that's something to bear in mind. You know, don't use bankruptcy as a get out of jail free card. So I can say one thing that I remember. It was last year in 2023 where all of a sudden I was dealing with so many issues with, you know, with jobs and, you know, like job hopping, and it was just like stuff that just wasn't really fitting me well and whatnot. And, you know, like I just like I know like I wasn't doing anything wrong, but I'll tell you, I had to freaking budget like crazy and try to prioritize so much, like, okay, like what bills am I going to spend on, and like what days and whatnot. I had to just shift so much things over. And I still had to do this partially even into this year as well. It wasn't as bad, but I mean, hell, things got so bad for me. I wound up being 3 months behind on rent. I was actually on the verge of having to go to court for an eviction hearing. Which, that kind of stuff, like, it never happens with me. Like, I do everything that I'm supposed to be doing. But, stuff can happen to anybody. It doesn't matter who you are. But, even, at least I can say that, hey, like, I was not in that hole because of really anything I was doing wrong. I wasn't buying stuff I didn't need. And just like, say, like, spending hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars on something I could have waited on. Like, no. Like, like, things that just happened, and, once I wound up getting into the right situation and everything with the right jobs and the right job and whatnot, and, then everything turned around for me. So, I've observed it. Oh, sorry. Been sick for a little while. But, not just from the YouTube videos. I've also observed from people I know. And, some of them, like, they'll just mooch off of others and just take advantage of them. I've ran into people taking advantage of me. And, like, I'll be, like, wondering sometimes, like, okay, like when are you going to pay me back? Like, even, like, partially, like, some increments, like, something, and it's just, like, it never did. It's, like, but now, it did get me thinking, like, who really knows what they could have been using that money for? Some of the people I used to know that, they turn out to be like some liars and deceitful and, just scummy people. While, they probably more likely didn't use it for the stuff they needed, and which I know that definitely happened in some cases, but who knows? They could have been like, hey, I need $300 for this, but then really they're like, who knows? They could have been just using that to, treat themselves to a spa or something. So, gotta kind of keep your eyes on that too. But, yeah, you just never know what can happen out there. What kind of mentality that people out there are gonna do. So, yeah, you just. When it comes to being in any kind of tight situation, you can, you just gotta sit back, evaluate, like, okay, like, what can I do better? What can I cut my spending on, and come up with a plan. Subscriptions. That is a big thing. That's a big thing that, can really cut into your money every month. So, what you could do is you could cancel them all together, or go from monthly plans to yearly plans, which there's plenty of options out there. Now, of course, as with other things, a lot of people just freak out. They see a video, they're like, oh my gosh, this is so much. But they're not seeing things long term. They're not seeing things like, oh, hey, like, I could actually save like this amount of money, like X amount of money every year if I do this. And the thing is, if you go with a yearly subscription plan, then all of a sudden, okay, hey, you just freed up like 11 more months, and now you're not feeling so tied down. Now, like, oh, hey, that $15 or $20 a month, it's basically like spaced out over longer period of time. Because now all of a sudden, like, that's just all bundled into one big payment. Now that is something that I do. Like, I don't have like really like a whole lot. Like, my big stuff is with PlayStation Plus. As I did start doing that when I got a PlayStation 4 7 years ago. And I also have Amazon Prime, and also I have PlayStation Plus, Amazon Prime, and Apple Music. Apple Music, I actually just had changed from a monthly to a yearly. So now it's just like, okay, like, hey, like now I'm just like, okay, I just go about my day, and now I'm just like, okay, when I'm like evaluating things, I'm like, okay, hey, I really don't have to worry about this until, close to the time that it comes up, and then, start taking a look into things, moving forward, and go from there. So, that's something you could do if, you don't feel like canceling it altogether. YouTube Premium is the only thing that I do pay monthly on, because unfortunately, when I've tried to look at that for yearly, it seems to be a very difficult process, and there's not really like a more direct way of changing that. So I'm just like, okay, screw it, I'll just keep it monthly. But that's the only monthly subscription I have to worry about. So, I've had premium actually ever since it first started out in 2014 as YouTube Red. But again, subscriptions, the way I see it is go yearly or cancel them altogether. You could do something too where, okay, like, let's say something was $100 a year, and okay, well, I can't afford this right away, then okay, just cancel something for a little while, then, a few months from now, then it's like, okay, now I can afford this $100 a year, then hey, go for it. You can afford it at that point, and reasonably, of course. Don't cut into anything like so much. Otherwise, you'll just stay broke. So as long as again, you can reasonably afford it, then go for it. So just, you have to, you have to put yourself in a position where no matter what it is, cars, phones, subscriptions, or whatever else that you spend your money on, you have to put yourself in a position where, you got to ask yourself, okay, can I reasonably afford this up front? There's always options out there that are better than being subjected to monthly payments. So, hey, I mean, of course, you got emergency measures, that you have to take. You got to do what you got to do. Again, do things reasonably. But besides that, don't go that route unless you absolutely have to. I can say that at least no matter what I've gone through, I've paid things up front, outright every single time, and that's what I continue to do. So, I have no reason to change anything up. It's kind of that philosophy where if it's not broke, don't fix it. Plain and simple. So, I'd say that pretty much wraps things up. So, be sure to hit a like on the video, subscribe for more, and I will see you guys later. Take it easy, guys.